Get the latest Zacks research, analysis, and rankings on exchange-traded funds in Exploring ETFs. Time to recap some big ETF winners for February with our ETF strategist, Eric Dutram, who joins me now from Zacks.com. So, was February a good month for ETFs or just an okay month?
It was really, in between. It wasn't too great, wasn't too bad. We did see some solid inflows into the space, but for the most part, equity ETFs, at least on average, were down on the month. Mm-hmm. But bond ETFs were pretty much flat, and this compares to a slightly negative performance for the S&P 500. So while the performances might not have been there overall, we did still see some inflows into the space, so it continues this trend of investors embracing ETFs, although it was a very small amount for February.
Okay. There were some strange winners, though, I noticed.
Yeah, exactly. We have emerging markets. They were one of the top performing equity segments, led by IDX, was an Indonesia fund, and EPHE, which is a Philippines ETF. Mm-hmm. Both of these are highly ranked by our Zacks ETF ranking system, and they both added about 7% on the month. And then also we have financials. They were a top performer for the month, led by broker-dealers, and then two property and casualty insurance ETFs.
So it's the mix of it all that makes it strange?
Yeah, it's the mix, and then one of the other big winners for the month was consumer staples. So you got a nice, interesting mix of companies like Procter & Gamble,
right, and
then kind of companies from Indonesia and the Philippines leading the market higher. So it's a strange bedfellows, if you will, of some of the riskier emerging markets, at least perceived, along with some of the really safer companies out there like Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, leading the market higher. So I think it's a really interesting combination for February.
So some people would call that eclectic.
Yes.
So overall top performers for fund investors?
Basically it was largely due to this past week with some of the Italian worries. And that really spiked a lot of the volatility ETFs and ETNs, led by VXX, VIIX, and VIXY. All these really added double digits on the month, and that was pretty much thanks to the past week, where they added about 10% in the past 5 days. And that was largely thanks to the spike in volatility in the time period, otherwise known as the fear index.
Yeah, do we want to even talk about the losers for the month?
We can briefly highlight them. Some of the big ones are obviously Italy, and then Spain, and some of the other weak so-called pig nations in Europe. Mm-hmm. And then you have gold and silver miners. They were also really hard hit. So it's kind of the usual suspects, at least in terms of the losers for February.
So is all of this, you think, a trend that's going to be intact for another month or so, or?
It's going to depend on what happens in Italy and if they can kind of get their act together. The Italy ETF, EWI, lost about almost 20% in February. So it's going to be hard for them to, continue sliding like that. But perhaps the gold and silver funds can, kind of turn things around. We saw kind of a bottom after Bernanke's testimony earlier in the week.
Well, they got a lot going on out there. Don't forget that. They get a new president, new pope all at one time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot to handle, I'm telling you. Do you own any of the ETFs?
I do own IDX for my personal portfolio, the Indonesia ETF.
Okay. Take a look at some other ETF articles that Eric writes with his expert analysis on Zacks.com. All you have to do is go to the homepage and scroll down until you get to the ETF module on that homepage. Click on any of those story links. It'll take you right to the ETF section of our website. With Eric Dutram, I'm Terry Ruffalo.